How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little nervous, but I'm good.
Why are you nervous? This is your time.
I know. I just always get nervous. Like I've had medium mentoring sessions, and
Yeah.
um, I get really nervous. But this one, I'm not as quite as nervous because you had to do all the work. I don't. I don't.
You can just kick back and enjoy.
Yeah.
Although I will share, you have one of the funnier charts I've seen in a long time.
Oh, really?
It just,
Oh, God. I
well,
hope it's not funny, like funny.
it's funny. It's locked. It's a very fixed, it in many qualities in the chart. There's we'll get into it, but there's different modes in the astrological space. Virtually every sign and every planet gets categorized with different energetic groupings, and the fixed qualities, which would be Taurus is a fixed sign, for example. It has a love of things being consistent and stable and predictable. You have a culmination of a ton of fixed energy in your chart, which is good on one hand. It makes you reliable and responsible. It can make you quite structured, if you will. But the flip side is that when it comes to actually changing, implementing some type of new, if you want to be adventurous, if you're looking for some type of shift in your daily life, for example, it can be hard
Yeah.
to find the momentum to get
Ugh.
lift off, right? To actually
Yeah.
go ahead and break from this structure, because there's so much fixed composition and energy that is keeping you in a relatively stuck place.
Wow. Well, that explains some stuff.
We're gonna have so much fun with your chart today. I was pouring over it, and I was just getting such a kick out of it, because there's so many countries. Because on the one hand, there's like this enormous intention to like do great things and to go forth and make the world a different place, and then everything
Yeah.
else around it is like getting in the way of that.
That's what it feels. Yeah. I've had the last couple of years, well, really the last like 7 years have been pretty rough. And then I started awakening a few years ago, very slowly,
Yeah.
but the last two, and I had addiction problems, prescription medication and alcohol before that. And I quit out drinking alcohol a while ago, but like many, many years ago. But then I was still on so much medication that was prescribed, and
Yeah.
off. But it was killing me, and I just went through this huge black place, and got to that place where it's like, I just don't think I want to be here anymore. But then that's when spirit started kind of showing me weird things.
You're not ready to leave yet, darling.
Yeah, I'm so tired right now. And I feel like the last 2 years I got off almost all the medication, everything I can.
Yeah.
I'm doing every natural modality, but it's been like, I feel like I've been in dark night of the soul for like 2 years almost.
Aye, aye, aye.
And it's just getting, where I don't wake up feeling doom and gloom in the morning. So, but my brain, when you're on all that stuff, I was on all these antidepressants and other stuff, ADHD medication, and
endless.
Yeah, and it just, all that does is mask symptoms and not the issues. So.
So let me, I sent you a copy of your chart, yeah?
Yes.
All right. You don't have to reference it. Some people want to kind of do the play-by-play. Other people want to kind of just talk it through. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, and then I'll turn it back to you to kind of structure what it is that you want to cover. I just want to make sure that I have the framework in place.
Okay.
What was the physical ailments that led to the prescription meds?
Pain, neck and back pain. Then
was it an injury, or was it just kind of a soreness, or
well, I was a competitive gymnast when I was young. Yeah. Really young. And then so I like They did an MRI, I don't know, back I think in 2007. And I had, just I'm very flexible, but that can be when you're too flexible, then you don't have stability in your joints and stuff like that. And I used to be able to do a back bend and put my head through when I was little, put my head through my legs. And I think I probably got some, anyway, they said I had like bulging discs in my lower back, but nothing, not herniated, and in my neck. And I've had a lot of, my back would start locking up on me and stuff like that.
Sure. Okay. Go ahead.
But I don't think, I did have injuries. I've had broken arms and things like that, but nothing that I haven't recovered from.
Yeah, sure. And then the tendencies towards alcohol, was that with you early or did that develop later on?
Later. Yeah.
When
and it runs in my family.
Yeah.
My dad died of it.
Late 20s into your 30s or beyond?
It started getting bad in my mid 30s and beyond.
Yeah.
I mean, I was still functioning pretty well until in my 40s with it.
All right, we're still going to have fun with your chart. This gives me a good framework because there's definitely, we'll get to it. Tell me a little bit more. Your marriage has been healthy?
Lately, I've been married many times.
And I was going to say, you have so much volatility in your romantic space.
Oh, yeah.
It's uncanny how much, it's conflict, it's variation, it's stubbornness, it's all sorts of energy. I mean, this would have been such an entry, both the family and the romantic space. It's just unbelievable. And by the way, I have some screens I have a screen off to my left and a second screen in front of me. So if you see me looking away, it's just because I'm looking at different tools that I pulled together to really give a good depiction. I always get a sense of how a reading's going to unfold. It's hard to tell sometimes until the conversation really gets going exactly where it is. There's the heaviness in your chart, certainly, but there's a lot of love and there's a lot of compassion. There's a lot of romantic intensity, actually. It's kind of like it gives a lot, it needs a lot, it can get into those type of relationships, but it's just unbelievable, both in the household as well as in the long-term committed marital space. I get so anxious and I get into these charts just because I'm excited. But the dogs are a healthy interruption just because we didn't set an energetic intention. So I usually just take 10 or 15 seconds just in a quiet space where we can just say, you can share it, or I usually just say privately to myself what my intention is for this reading and what we're going to actually try to accomplish. So if you want to just close your eyes, it's like 10 or 15 seconds and just quietly say to you where you'd like this discussion to go and what you'd hope to achieve.
I would like to see some predictive things.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know if with what I've been doing, if I'm heading in the right direction, and just some guidance. I'd like some guidance and support.
Perfect. And my intention is to be fully in service to you. Okay, so I will do everything I can to illuminate your path and to give you a little bit of wisdom of what's brought you to this point.
Okay.
All right, so that's my intention. So in addition to the health challenges, certainly in addition to what you just mentioned with regards to your path, is there any other aspect? Do you want to talk about your relationship life a little bit in detail, or do we want, I know there's so much that we can cover in your chart, but what other areas would you enjoy discussing?
What I might be doing for a living and for my life purpose. I feel like I've been working so hard on that and stuff's not happening that I was hoping would happen.
All right, the practical stuff. And so give me I got a feeling the practical stuff for this incarnation might be secondary to some of the other growth that you've been experiencing. And I think, and we'll start to kind of get our arms around what you're really here for a little bit.
Okay.
Because there is a lifetime pursuit, a lifetime call into community and into service, actually, but it's a later stage evolution. It really requires, this chart requires a ton of personal development and a lot of personal struggle before you can potentially get there.
Well, that's what I feel like I've been going through. Yeah. And I'm like, why did I start waking up so late? You know, I'm 58 years old. And then I start going, oh God, you know, by the time I get it together, I'm going to just be dead. So it's kind of discouraging, but I'm trying not, you know, I'm doing a course in miracles. So I work on my thoughts and all that stuff. And it really is helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about Course in Miracles.
I'm not familiar with Course in Miracles. You also, you can explain to me, you also say you're doing a Reiki course, right?
I just did that. Yeah. It was a 1-day seminar, and I have experienced where I feel energy a lot in my, I was told this is what gave me the impetus. I was in and out of AA, but I still couldn't, you know, get long-term sobriety.
Yeah.
It didn't work for me. It worked for my husband way back when we both did it together, and he stayed sober and I didn't. And then I was told that, I mean, everybody has gifts, of course, everybody, but I didn't believe in God or anything. I was willing to, but I'm just like, I don't know. I just, give me some proof, you know?
Yeah, I'm the same. And then you're an earth sign. You want it to be real. You want it to be structured. Like it's requiring, it wants it to be tangible. It's probably the right word.
Yeah.
You know?
And so then we started going out for fun. We saw some paranormal stuff, and I thought most of them were probably lying, you know, but I'm like, well, if it's so easy to get, let's go see if we can get some evidence. And we got some amazing evidence. And then it was on. Then I, you know,
you started to transition.
I'm like, oh my gosh, there is something more than just this.
Oh, it actually, everything is more than just this.
Yeah, it's like we see such a tiny amount.
April, this is the illusion.
Yeah,
this is the illusion, and
that's what A Course in Miracles teaches too.
Okay, you know, I have heard of it. I heard of it years ago. I'll look into it. I'll look into it again, actually. And I'm, you know, and I've had my own struggles, and I can certainly relate to some of your struggles. One of my closest friends in New York actually was an alcoholic for many years, and he ended up switching his addiction to alcohol into an addiction for AA. He actually, you know, he never really resolved the underlying addictive tendencies. He simply went and redirected them into what was a healthier addiction, if you will.
Healthier, yeah.
And it worked for him for over 2 decades until it didn't work for him anymore. And I actually, Nick, if you're watching this video, call me. I haven't seen him. I haven't heard from him. I haven't been able to get a hold of him, you know, so but what I understand and what I've come to believe in my own journey and what I've been able to connect with people on is oftentimes alcohol, drug use, prescription meds are really tricky because they sneak up on you. And of course, it's a very respectable doctor, or, you know, the institution that's bringing them to you is obviously, it seems to be well-intended, but the addictive tendencies for those prescription pills is uncanny.
Oh yeah, then I started abusing opiates because I always had anxiety, and you know, I didn't want to feel all my feelings, and so I was like, that gave me relief from it, but then it always stops working, and then
and that's it. So, and this is going to be kind of the foundation. So there's a stuckness in your chart. There's both a stubbornness, but energetically there's a stuckness, right? I don't know if that's even a real word, but there's enough fixed energy in your chart that it makes things intractable. It makes things very set. And so once something gets into your psyche, once it gets into your consciousness, it's very hard for you to simply go just release it. right? It doesn't allow it to just flow out. So, and on top of it, there's such a degree of it's almost as if, it's almost as if you're your own worst enemy for most of this, I would say. And if you have your chart easily accessible, you can look at it. If you don't, it's not a big deal. But when you look at the grid down below, just as a reference point, when the energies of an individual are congruent, friendly, or otherwise in harmony, they show with blue lines, which speaks to the energy that comes together in a healthy capacity. When the energy is either in pure opposition or what we call squares, it's the non-harmonization of energy. All right. So, like, for example, your sun and your moon are non-harmonized. The sun would be the masculine, the kind of adventurous, the determination. The moon would represent the nurture, the more companionship oriented, the gentler kind of feminine. When they're not in alignment, when in your case they're a square, sometimes you very much want to be in a relationship, which would be the feminine energy. Sometimes you very much want your independence, which would be the masculine energy. And it's so dramatic that when you're in a relationship, you think about being single. And when you're single, you think about being in a relationship. It's right. It's a non-harmonized disposition. And that's just one of many badly energetically misaligned. Okay, it's like you talk about the alignment of the stars. These are just challenges that your soul brought into this incarnation in an effort to see how far it could evolve through this life, through this journey.
What was I thinking?
You chose a really tough one. You chose a really tough one because there's enormous intent to do good things, to move forward. Yeah, it kind of has visionary, wants to influence others. It actually has a huge heart. Like it genuinely wants to take care of the family, and then it wants to broaden out. It has a desire to get into community, to be achievement oriented, but all the while there's so much inner conflict and so much personal struggle. And that struggle is so remarkably entrenched that anytime you get a moment where you start to branch out with ideas or maybe even a glimmer of hope and light, it very quickly brings you back into the stuckness that would get in the way of really implementing true change. And so when I see a chart that's of this nature, it's like when you get liftoff on a plane, for a plane to go and actively take off the run, it has to get enormous. It has to get to a certain velocity. It has to get to a certain, lift, if you will. You're like that plane that's like on the runway, and at times it's like, okay, we're going to get going, but it never, and it's like, wait, and then it comes back down. And it's like, wait.
What it feels like, yeah. You're so out right on. Yeah, I'm trying so hard.
You're trying so hard, but it doesn't get up. And if it doesn't get up, it can't possibly turn to a different direction.
Yeah.
And something like alcohol abuse, something like certainly prescription meds, something like endless conflict in relationships, or potentially in this case, confinement within the family, because the family has both the good and the bad in your context, because there would be, right? It would offer you at times the most loving, most beautiful space possible, but at times enormous, incredible heaviness, confinement, restriction, like all that.
Horrible stuff. Yeah.
Horrible stuff.
So confusing. So much love in my family. Absolutely. And a lot of horrible stuff too. Right. I mean.
And so this, at times you would have felt so loved, like you would have been able to receive it, you would have been able to give it, but other times you actually would have, it's Saturn and Jupiter, it would have kept you almost as if the courage that you would have needed to really break away from the family might not have been there the way you needed it. And it's both the family you grew up in, but it's also the home that you would create. It would have had the energy, would have had the potential to carry over into both of those households. And so it's kind of the conscientiousness that happens when you grow up in a household that has this kind of dysfunction, where you have to be able to recognize both the light and the dark and somehow reconcile that both of these two things can coexist, but that you don't have, that they're not always going to be in balance, or they're not always going to be predictable.
Yeah. And that's so right on.
There's so much intensity in this chart, and there's so much beauty in this chart also, if the chart holder can gain the right tools and spiritual awakening or awareness, which is where it sounds like you've reached, to put it all into perspective.
Yeah.
Because go ahead. I'm going to say, you won't be able to change much of this is not transform. Much of this can't be changed. Much of this is actually trying to put you into a state of acceptance, to recognize what is. And it's the serenity prayer in AA.
Yeah.
That's what
Give me the strength to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yeah.
And that's what this chart actually, it's like the mantra for this chart from the get-go.
And that's where I feel like with my family, I felt like I was always trying, not that it's like here I am trying to save everyone else and help them and fix them when I wasn't myself. It's like you can't give away what you don't have, but I was doing that all the time.
And they were actually receiving it and feeling quite loved, actually.
Yeah. And then when my parents started dying, both my dad died in an ugly way. My mom got Alzheimer's but took forever to pass. And there's a lot of, just people, all my siblings. I have 4 siblings. One brother I'll probably never be able to have a relationship with him, and neither will my sisters. We only have one brother. He's like a sociopath.
Can you give me the birthdays as you share family members?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
yeah, go ahead. I'm curious to hear how this unfolds.
He's January 6th, I believe.
Yeah.
I hope I'm right about that. That's terrible. I should know his birthday, but
it's okay.
Okay, and then
you're close. You're in the ballpark. It's like first week of January.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. It's not going to be like March 20th.
Okay. No. It's January. It's the beginning of January. Yeah.
Okay, and then you're one of 4.
5.
You're one of 5. So then you have 3 sisters. Sorry. So give me the.
Yeah.
And where do you fall in the pecking order?
They're my brothers, 3 years older than me.
Yeah.
Then me, then my sister Holly, 2 years younger.
Yeah.
She was born on July 20th.
Okay, that's a cuss baby.
And then there's 8 years for the next one, June 26th. My sister Amber.
Okay, she's married with kids?
No, she has 1 child, but not married.
Okay.
She's going to get married finally. She's never been married before.
Okay. Yeah. That's
and then
go ahead.
Kelly, the youngest, 11 years younger, and hers is April 22nd.
Okay. And your folks?
My mother, October 23rd, when was it? I can't remember, 1930.
That's okay. That's
6,
right.
I think. And then my dad, what's my dad? Oh gosh. I think he was July 12th. That's weird. I can't remember my dad's birthday. I think it was July 12th. Wait, would that be a Cancer?
Well, so I'm piecing together all the sun sign chemistry in your family. July 12th would make him a Cancer.
Yeah, I think it's July 12th.
Your mother would have just barely, depending on what time she was born, she would have been right. You've got 3 cusps in your family. Your mother would have just barely either been the very tail end of Libra or her sun sign's perfectly on the cusp of either Libra and Scorpio on October 23rd. It's actually it can be a very intense cusp. Like I think the most famous on that cusp is Judge Judy. I'm not mistaken.
How funny. Wow. Oh, Judge Judy.
So if you know Judge Judy's personality.
Oh yeah. No, my mom wasn't like that. That's for sure.
So, but if she's got Scorpio in her, which she does, and your father is a July birthday as a Cancerian male, So that's a water family. Although your mother would be half Libra, which would have made her gentler by her nature, but it depends on where the rest of her chart fell. But okay,
Yeah.
so go ahead. So tell me, and so your brother, so and your relationship with the three the girls, the other.
Well, so it's okay. So we were pretty close, but there was always lots of fighting, especially with me and my sister Holly, who's 2 years younger.
Yeah, July 20th.
And yeah.
Yeah.
But I felt really, really close to everyone. And then when the nightmare of my parents started, because my mom started getting dementia a long time ago, and my dad he's abusive physically and mentally, verbally. And he was abusing, not taking care of her and abusing her. It's so weird because I know he really loved her too, but anyway.
So did the abuse spill over towards the kids as well?
Oh yeah, especially me, more than me and my brother. That's why I think my brother is just, he's so damaged. He's so damaged.
Did your father ever reveal, I mean, do you know details of his upbringing?
He didn't really talk about it, but I know that he was abused, and
yeah, because
he was.
Go ahead. Huh? No, go ahead. There's so much here. I'm glad we have a lot of time to cover it. I'm going to do everything I can to start to piece it together from a spiritual angle to give you some perspective on it. But go ahead, keep telling me. It's wonderful.
Well, after my father died, then I had a session with a medium, my first medium, who was amazing, and she's the reason. She said, "Well, you're a physical medium," and I was like, "What? I've never seen anything," or blah blah blah. And she's like, "That's because you're blocked from being in survival most of your life with your childhood and stuff." And I'm like, really? But that's what gave me that, was when I was like, and then she also like, and all the medication you're on, which she didn't know anything about me. And I was like, oh, that made me go, that woke something up in me. And that was what was the catalyst for me getting off of all the medication and being
clean,
like going to spirituality and all that. So anyway, immediately she told me my father, he said there was mental illness with his mother. He never said that in lifetime, but
because he hadn't done the work to communicate healthily about how he was traumatized.
Yeah. And there's a lot of alcoholism in his family. Yeah. They were raised in Arkansas in the Depression era, and they even had to eat squirrels sometimes to stay alive, and so it was pretty rough, I know. But he was emotionally very unavailable and didn't talk very much about stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh.
I know.
All right.
So
here, I'm going
to. Well, I started to say that when all this stuff happened with my parents, people's behavior, I basically, it got to a point where I felt like I got completely stabbed in the back by my sisters and betrayed and abandoned. And that's what just really, I just felt like I just didn't even want to be here anymore after that.
Do you want to give me a little bit of detail around that? Like how that you felt or what happened?
Well, my youngest sister is married to an alcoholic, no surprise. And her kids were really little. And I've been in therapy for a long, long time, and in learning things in AA. And I was trying to get them to not pass that on down to their kids, because that's what happens.
Yeah. True.
And so my therapist is like, she's like, you have to call Child Protective Services. And so I didn't turn my sister in, but I was trying to get her to leave her husband and getting all in there. And it really backfired on me, you know, especially when Child Protective Services went out there. They didn't do a damn thing anyway, but so that backfired on me.
But was
Another
it
sister,
was your which sister was that? Was that Holly?
that was Kelly.
Kelly. So was Kelly then, was she angry with you for meddling in her life, or
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, really bad. And then another sister, both Kelly, and I don't have any children. I took care of both her children until they started going to preschool.
Yeah.
And I took care of my other sister Amber's child for
Yeah.
free, you know, did just so much for her, and it felt so close to their kids. And then that one blows up. Oh, that one's Amber's a trippy sister. I think she's super sensitive, and she may have some pretty strong gifts, but she's like really creative and talented, but really dingy, and she remembers things very, very weird. And she's also hyper vigilant, so she's always accusing people of doing things to her that they don't. Anyway, I said something about her. She was talking about other people abandoning their animals, and I'm like, you mean like how you dumped your cat on mom and dad and blah blah blah? And I didn't know her little daughter heard that. She was in the other room. So that blew up. And there's all this stuff going on because it was so ugly what was happening with my parents.
Yeah.
It's just like such a big fat mess. I feel like it would take hours to tell you all of it. But
Yeah. Well,
basically,
yeah,
she like wouldn't let me see her daughter and wouldn't talk to me. And also, I'm sure I had to be like, my big thing is I would say when I was upset, I had bad temper. I identified more with the abuser than being the enabler like my mom. Because
Sure.
I'm like, I'd rather, so I didn't have good boundaries. You know, I had a part in it too, definitely. But anyway, I just felt like everyone then, their behavior just, they were all coming from their place of pain in a different way, all of us, because it was just awful. It was so ugly.
And that's exactly the sense that I'm getting as you describe it.
Yeah. And so I just very recently, I never thought, my sister Holly's the one that I thought I felt like she tried to, because I was the one trying to get my mom in a safe place, and I really wasn't getting help from anyone else here, because my sister Kelly and Amber live up here. My brother he's just crazy. He was a nightmare. He was stealing from my parents and doing horrible things. Anyway, so I felt like I was doing most of that myself, trying to get my mom safe, trying to find a place for her. So disturbing, like dropping your mom off at a place, you know, and she doesn't know what's going on, and going, why are you leaving me here? When my dad should have been involved. He didn't help with any of it. He's just too busy drinking, and being crazy. And so then my sister Holly lived down south, the one that's 2 years younger.
Yeah.
And I said, please, I need help. Can you just take over? Because I have been doing that for a couple of years. Well, when she did, then she's like, well, this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
We got enough. We've always clashed.
And is there, tell me, is there drugs and alcohol running through all siblings?
No, just my brother,
yeah.
Not alcohol, but drugs.
Yeah.
And the 3 younger ones, no. My sister Holly, no, that's not true. She, I think, is, you know, it's not for us to say if someone's an alcoholic or not, but
yeah, sure.
You know, she drinks champagne and drinks on a daily basis. She's still very high functioning.
Yeah,
but
I'm trying to figure out how much of it is energetic or karmic, and how much of it is the distortions of substance.
Yeah. And then the younger 2 sisters, not alcoholics or drug addicts at all.
Okay. All right.
That's a big old mess, isn't it?
You got the whole family piled into a karmic wheel. You guys are on a karmic
Yeah.
wheel. You know that, right? You're on this amazing
Yes.
karmic wheel. So it would be great if we had a little bit more perspective on your father's upbringing, because my guess is that it was horrible.
Yeah.
And um,
I
so
think it was.
I think it was horrible. I think it was,
Oh.
I think it was horrible. And I say that because the Cancerian energy, a healthy Cancer is the most nurturing sign of the zodiac. It's the most self-sacrificial, unless it's been deeply wounded, in which case all signs have a light and a dark quality. We have our generosity, and we also obviously have our selfishness. We have our joy, our happiness, our love. We have our fear, our hate, our destruction, right? And it all manifests differently depending on the sign. The Cancerian, by its nature, when it's in its loving space, it is endlessly sacrificial with an enormous heart that is always just looking to nurture, right? It governs the fourth house. The fourth house is family, it's home. It is ruled by the moon. The moon is the feminine. It's just like my friend has a very healthy Cancerian father, and she describes him as one big hug. She says, when you're around
Oh.
my dad, all you want to do is give him, he wants to hug everybody, and you just want to be wrapped in his arms.
I saw glimpses of that in my father. And even though he wouldn't say things, I was always trying to get confirmation of his love verbally and stuff, and really could never get it. But even when he was really angry or something, if you went and hugged him, he would just melt. But I never could, because I was
Yep.
like pissed myself. So my mom would go, why don't you just be quiet and be sweet and go sit on his lap like your sister Holly? And I was like, no, I am not going to do that.
So if your father was on the path and he'd actually had the right resources, there's the possibility that he would have been able to unpack the heaviness of his upbringing and these deep wounds, and in turn
Yeah.
obviously moved more to his loving, more to his nurturing side. Insofar as he didn't, he created an environment that your soul and your sister and your siblings, their souls all actually chose your parents as to be parents in an environment that they would be forced to grow through. Okay,
Well,
so
that's for sure.
in the spiritual context, we don't believe in any of this as just some mere coincidence. We certainly don't see, when we evolve beyond it, we don't see it as a victim complex in the traditional sense, like, oh my God, I got screwed with such terrible parents. We start
Right.
to come into terms with this adversity, recognizing the amazing opportunity for introspection and growth.
Right.
And no greater opportunity for introspection and growth exists than when we're being raised in an abusive, dysfunctional, certainly if there's alcoholic tendencies or substance abuse, because then it creates an erratic, unpredictable environment, right? And that one
Yeah.
of the top needs for a child, especially the Taurian, is the consistency and stability. And so when you're never given that at a very young age, it creates this wobbling effect of unpredictability, both in the life around you, so the people that you end up choosing as partners, as well as the sense of self. And so your chart, more than anything, actually wants great stability, but by virtue of never having it, never learning it, never enjoying it, never being able to look at the number one protector in your life, which would be your father, and having a healthy example set, which would have been by your mother, to create that atmosphere of love and compassion and consistency, by your soul choosing to come into an atmosphere which didn't offer it, and yet your chart needing it so much, it's indicating the most profound, the deepest of opportunities for growth through some of the heaviest of possible struggles. It didn't mean that you had to go into drugs and alcohol at all. It
Yeah.
didn't mean that. It's you weren't given the tools necessarily at a young age to decipher all of what you were experiencing. And so you used an example that had been set for you, probably plus maybe some biological imprinting as well, that made it easy for you to go into an escapist environment. And that could have
Yeah.
right? That could have kept your vibration sitting low, and that lower vibration, which is what drugs and alcohol does, it would have kept your gifts at bay, and it would have kept you
Yeah.
stuck in that space. It would have felt safe and predictable, but in a dysfunctional way.
By the way, I had really severe life-threatening asthma from 2 years old
Yeah.
until an adult. I forgot, and I was on this medication since I was 2. That was
What,
pretty gnarly, but
were either of your parents smokers?
no.
Yeah, see, and that's when I hear something like that, that would have been more likely would have been karmic as well. It would have brought you into a space with some type of physical vulnerability that manifested at a very early age to reinforce this intention to force you into this path that you would have had to grow through.
Jeez.
I know
I
you
wish
just so like I obviously there's ambition in this chart, and there's a ton of there's a lot of there's hard work. I didn't know that it would have I didn't know obviously that this had been your upbringing, so I didn't know that all of your drive, determination, it's really to have gotten through these amazing struggles to bring you to this point. Some in a lot of times it manifests, people get on careers and they end up running their own, like this chart could have its own business, for example. Like this chart could
Yeah.
have taken all that drive and determination and created some type of it could have been a million things. There's actually no limitation. It has a lot of creativity in the business space and a lot of drive and determination to influence a bigger audience. It has a lot of comfort around its ambition, right? It just so happens that the heaviness of the environment that you were raised in put you in a state of survival, and you start to develop all sorts of mechanisms by which you could get through days and weeks that were otherwise hugely just heavy, just hugely weighing on you in different ways. And without a healthy support network to show you a more, I guess, positive, lighter, or spiritual way through it, you would have been left largely on your own to try to figure it out. And plus, coupled with your own inner volatility as it relates to your relationship space and the marital volatility where you're in and you're out and the uncertainty around it, this amazing ability to give and to connect. And, there's a lot of, there's a sensuality to it. It's like a full-on type of romantic energy, but then there's a ton of unpredictability and dysfunction in it. So you're raised in a household that was terribly unpredictable. You end up with that kind of on and off. It's funny. It's a fixed chart, meaning you don't want anything to change, but all the while you're not so predictable one day to the next.
That's right on. I have never, I'm like the wild black sheep, and I've never, I felt like I've never been able to stick with anything until in my whole life, really, even stuff I loved. I love dancing. I love it so much. I love singing. And until the spirituality thing.
That's going to change everything. April, that's going to put all this, the day will come. I don't know when it happens. You're moving that direction, but the day will come and you'll start to see that all of this is exactly as it's supposed to be. You're going to end up making peace with this. You're going to move into a state of acceptance with your siblings, right? Which acceptance is then the precursor to love and, all the beauty that comes with that. You're going to make peace with this difficult upbringing at some point, and you're going to then shift into gratitude. It will take you a while, but the spiritual work that you're doing will get you there.
I have recently just reconciled after my mother died almost 2 years ago, but and very recently with Amber, and I just had a visit from my sister Holly for 3 days, which is the first, and it was like the best we've gotten along in 1,000 years, and I have reconciled with them, and it's very, the youngest one, we're really pretty close.
Yeah, that's great.
But so the other 2, I never thought I'd make up with them, and we have.
You're close with the other Taurus.
There is, Kelly. Yes.
No, of course, because of all the earth in your chart. That's the easiest one. And you can
She's
play
the only other one that's open at all to the spirituality stuff too. Not like I am, but she's.
But and you don't have to bring it to them. You'll end up setting an example, and they'll be encouraged by you leading the way without actually having to verbalize it, by just being the light.
That's never worked for me anyway. No matter how hard I tried before. Yeah.
But that's what's going to end up manifesting here. So, and let me just yeah, go ahead. Because this
No, I was laughing.
so you'll be able to, this is the joy of it. Your siblings will be a barometer measuring your progress in your own spiritual journey. All right. So as you move further, those relationships will automatically start to improve, not because you're necessarily going out of your way to do something differently. It's just because your spiritual intent is going to start to shift your energetic space, which will end up having a positive influence on all the relationships around you.
Good. That's hopeful.
So, and effectively what you're doing, these kind of conversations and the work that you're doing is to raise the vibrational energy, which is start to recognize some of the qualities that exist within you, some of the struggles that you've been through, to move to that state of acceptance so that they're no longer weighing on you. You're not in conflict with it any longer. You're more accepting what is, but then you're consciously moving into a more loving, more peaceful space, which is there's nothing wrong with having a difficult, sad, tumultuous thought. But over time, you start to drive a wedge between the thought and the response, and you can actively see it for what it is and not give it endless attention, right? It's one of my, and this is, alcoholics, when they go through the worst of their alcoholism, are given that all the time. And there's so much at play, which is why it's so difficult, but they feel the temptation calling to them all the time. And then they get stuck in their head, and the story keeps reinforcing itself. The alcoholics that are able to transcend it, oftentimes they have their various perspective, but they break out of any type of victim complex, saying that something's happening to me. It's like as if the world's out to get me. Like you go to those AA meetings and you can listen to people and you can just tell as soon as they go into the victim complex, that they're going to fall off the wagon, right?
It's funny. Go ahead.
Yeah, because
I recently, sorry.
No, it's okay. You want to share?
I haven't been to any meetings for a while, but I've been so isolated. I'm like, I've got to find some women friends here. I've been isolated for so long.
Sure.
And I've been pushing myself to go out. So I went to some women's meetings, and I haven't been to meetings in a long time. Yeah. And I did meet some, some women that I like and everything. But it's funny because when they say, and there's a lot of great stuff in AA, but they make you are supposed to say, I'm such and such, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm like, I don't want to say that, because I don't believe that I don't believe that anymore, that you're born an alcoholic.
I don't believe it either. I'm not the expert. This is my big disclaimer. I don't believe it either. I know what AA is trying to do in that space. They want ownership around it. So the first moment of ownership is recognition. So hi, my name's Allan, I'm an alcoholic. It's fine. Yeah. But ultimately, a healthier way of saying it is, hi, I'm out of alignment with my spiritual intent, and I've dealt with a ton of abusive environments and situations where I didn't have the proper leadership to help set an example by which I could extricate from that trauma. And so I've turned to alcohol to get me through it.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Yeah. That one's just not as easy to memorize.
As hi, I'm Allan, I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny because I'm like, ooh, saying anything after you say the words "I am" is really powerful.
It's very powerful.
I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
Right, and so what I was saying, when I went to those meetings, and I am hugely appreciative for the time that I spent in AA. Not because I had alcoholic tendencies, but because it's such a raw human experience, and you see people at their most vulnerable on so many different levels. But I could always tell, and my friend Nick and I used to talk about that, those that were still stuck in what you would call in the spiritual evolution, the first kingdom of growth, is the egotic victim complex, which is, my fucking boss and my goddamn wife. And if I just didn't have all these different problems, of course I wouldn't have to turn to the bottle, but I have no other choice. Life is so hard. Right. That's the first kingdom. Life is happening to you in that kingdom. When you start to elevate, some people do it with certainly some people will find God and that can help them elevate. A lot of people have to resolve their childhood traumas and a lot of the intention that was built around the alcoholic complex. But when they start to elevate, you go into the second kingdom, and that kingdom feels so, so differently in the spiritual space. And that is, this is happening for me.
Right.
And when you really get there and you truly believe that this is the amazing growth potential that your soul has chosen for an amazingly difficult incarnation, to see if you could get through it, to push you right to the very brink, where you can start to recognize your own decisions and how the world responds to you, and then in turn take ownership for it, and yet continue to elevate your consciousness to a space of acceptance and ownership, insofar as to say, this is for me. I'm doing this and it's somehow for me, and I am the captain of my own ship. I get to decide where I go next.
Right. And that's what I'm working on right now with.
And that's where you are.
Yeah.
You're in that transitional state right now where you have been stuck in that first kingdom, like life is hard, this is and a lot of times it was unconscious. If your body is full of drugs or of course alcohol, it's bring your vibrational level so far down that you can't even see it for what it is. You just you're gonna get stuck circling the drain. You don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the hardest part about it, is that until you get until you get that stuff out of your system, you don't have an opportunity to start to evolve into the next kingdom. And that wisdom that you were given to get off those meds, right, to start to purify your body, it allowed your vibrational state to come off the bottom just enough that you can now start to really embrace the second kingdom. This is allowing your transition to properly take hold.
I just hope it's not going to be too much longer, because I'm tired. I'm so tired.
So that's why, and I'm glad you brought that up, April, because you have an interest. So yes, you're very tired, but you're also phenomenally strong. This chart has incredible strength, and like that fixed energy. It's like the boulder, right? And it's getting lashed by the winds and the storms, and there's all sorts of things going on, but for whatever reason, that boulder somehow, some way, it stays together. Like it holds together. like there's a lot here. So the capacity for you to keep going is amazing. It's amazing. Far weaker compositions would have bailed out a long time ago. Because there's nothing easy in this chart. You have 2 harmonies and like 16, I don't know what it is, 12, like the ratio, it's usually you want it the other way around.
Yeah.
And on top of it, because of all the family and romantic, like if you were, I do readings where people feel incredibly isolated, and they have this deep loneliness and they can't overcome it. And that's a really difficult space. There's actually no shortage of relationships, the family dynamic, it's all full of dysfunction, unpredictability, and who knows what, but it's all there. It keeps you engaged.
Yeah.
You're not alone. You may at times feel like the spiritual journey starts to bring you to an elevated space, so you start to see things differently, but that's actually, and it does take some time when that really starts to happen, to become patient with the progress that the people around you, especially your loved ones, are making on their own journey. That you're going to have to breathe in.
Patience is not one of my virtues, that's for sure.
Well, there you go. You're just going to have to work on that. But that's it. Like, and the metaphor that I use is that you think about a running stream, like really fast moving, the rapids, the water, it comes and it goes, but most people are safely on one side, on one bank of the river, and they're hanging out there with pure comfort. They may have conflict, and they may not be all that happy there, but it's comfortable because it's so familiar. The people that see it as unfulfilling, there's a whole series of different stepping stones and sometimes little islands, but they have a vision that there's the other side of the river. If only they could get there, they'd find themselves in a better place.
Yeah.
And you'll invoke different spiritual assistance from different people who will effectively operate as stepping stones to help move you from where you are to the next. Yeah.
I've been meeting people and I keep getting shocked that I keep running into people that are all so spiritual and believe all this stuff. And in a place where I'm like, where are these people coming from? Here at Atascadero, California, this is where all these cowboys and hunters live and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm like, keep but I know it's no coincidence.
No, because your vibrational energy is the laws of attraction. You're starting to bring that into your space. And so
Yeah.
the beauty of it is, if you think about that same metaphor where there are all these different stepping stones. So today for our conversation, I'm operating as a stone that you can stand on, right? I'll support you.
uh,
At some point, you'll start to notice, because you've moved along this path far enough, that there are other people that need your help. There are other people that you're going to operate as a stone for, that you'll be able to hold space for. You'll be able to support them. You'll be able to bring them the wisdom of your own learnings. And it's the most beautiful moment is when when the student becomes the teacher, and vice versa. And we recognize that we're always in a state of learning, and we're just doing our best to help move people along, to bring them to this more enlightened, healthier space.
yeah.
Right? And it manifests in all sorts of different ways. The one thing that I always caution people is that if somebody's happily on the riverbank, even if they're living in, their own state of dysfunction, but they're happily there and they don't want to endeavor those stones to see what's on the other side, you don't pull them.
I'm done with that. That's
You let that go.
I do that all the time, and it doesn't work, and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And so what you'll start to do, especially with some of the long-term relationships where you've had whatever tumultuous or at times unhealthy dynamic, you'll just, you'll become more supportive. You'll invoke more love. You'll invoke the compassion that you can. And then you'll just allow it to kind of be, and recognize that they'll get there if they're going to get there. And if not, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Like it would have been, we can recycle that what if kind of conversation. What if your father had done the work? What if your father had overcome his own dysfunction? What if your father went from being an abusive father to a loving father? What if your mother, because if she's more Libra than she was Scorpio, then she would have been more subservient. She would have lost her identity in the relationship.
She did.
And so insofar, what if your mother actually found her voice and stood up for herself and created an offset, or one step further, create a protected environment that she could raise the kids healthily in and not subject them continuously to the dysfunction of the father, right? Those are all wonderful what ifs, but that's not the way it played out.
No,
right? And
nothing you can do about it.
And nothing you can do about it except reframe your perspective and invoke all these wonderful spiritual tools to help elevate your consciousness. To actually takes a very long time, and I'm still working on myself, but to actually grow into appreciation for what you went through.
Right.
And the moment, I don't know that you'll get there. Like I said, I struggle on my own front because people are like, aren't you grateful? I'm like, no, I'm not there yet.
I know.
I'm like, no, like I've had chronic digestive problems most of my adult life. And I'm like, people are like, but it's a great growing up. I'm like, no, I'm like, I'll be grateful, I think, when I get over it, but I can't, it's hard for me to get there now, right? I haven't gotten there yet, but I do know in my heart of hearts, the moment that I wake up with a degree of gratitude for the things that are beyond my control that have led to endless suffering, that's when I know that I've put them behind me.
Yeah.
And I had to do that with an abusive upbringing myself. I certainly worked on it with some of the unfortunateness of my youth. And it took me an awfully long time to see a healthy perspective so that I wasn't burdened by it and that I could open up my heart to properly love others. It took me a very long time. And to be frank, it doesn't just operate on the conscious level. I had to go into the subconscious, right? So the body keeps score. It's people don't realize it, but if you've had traumas, and you've had your share of traumas, they're stored in your system. They're in your nervous system.
I know. I'm going to be researching appendicitis. I briefly touched on it yesterday with the Reiki lady, and before that, I've had. But I am kind of grateful now. I got really fat also when I got really depressed.
Yeah.
Then I started getting sick, and then I ended up in the ER last year with diverticulitis. And I've got like a fungal infection that's going on that I'm still fighting. It shows up in my nails, but I'm getting better. I'm feeling better than I have actually physically in 2 years. And I lost a lot of weight.
you look great.
Thank you. Yeah, I was up to 217. I'm down to 143. now and a
And
half.
you've got to be hovering around your target weight, right? You're close.
Close. I mean, it's higher. Of course, my old, I wanted to be perfect my whole life and was on a diet my whole life before. It has to be a little higher now as I'm older and everything. But yeah, I still have a lot of body fat. I used to be a personal trainer.
Well, I know
Not,
I mean, you were a gymnast. You have the athletic background.
yeah. And I had a pretty smoking body, I will say. I never thought I was, I thought I wasn't, I thought I was ugly facially, but I had a really hot bod.
And you have Venus, which is your loving expression. You have it in Aries, which means not only that hot, like that hot body would have been on display. Like
Yes,
you,
it was.
I,
But I thought it was
I,
all my worth.
I can only imagine how you showcased it.
It was fun. Yeah, I moved from here down to LA for 23 years because I'm like, I want to be able to wear a mini skirt and show these beautiful legs off, but that was also a double-edged sword because then as you get older and you start losing your youth and all that, and then I got, it's like, wow, it's hard because I thought all of my worth was
your physical
on my body.
Yeah.
That was the only power I thought I had.
Yeah.
Then when you start losing your power,
Yeah.
it's hard. So I still work on, and we were raised to be very judgmental of other people's looks, and my dad was very narcissistic. He was like, all my sisters were pretty good looking, not like beauty queens, but one of them, Holly, she was gorgeous, and yeah, they were always talking about people's looks and putting other people down that weren't good looking, and those and
it's really a manifestation of their own insecurities and
yeah.
So just a quick win here. So the diet, the foods that you eat, because the Taurus is an indulgent sign, it can indulge in almost anything. Like it doesn't really have an off switch.
Yeah. I changed all of that because, and I won't say I don't, I radically changed my diet after the diverticulitis thing.
Yeah, that's an awful experience.
Yeah. And it was scary. My health was really, really in a scary place. The medium's like, oh, you've got heart, my heart's great though. Now, high blood pressure, all that. I had just eaten myself. You know what I ate for years and years every night for dinner? Yeah. Like a little bit of normal food during the day, huge Starbucks lattes, 3 or 4 a day, venti. Yeah. With all that poison milk in it and everything. And I knew better, but I didn't care. Yeah. And then I would have, I was a sugar addict. I've been a sugar addict my whole life. So then I would have a bottle of wine. When I was living by myself in LA, I would have like a bottle of wine or more and a pint of Haagen-Dazs and maybe some cheese and olives for dinner every night for years. And then with my husband, and we kept the Haagen-Dazs thing going, even when we weren't drinking, a pint of it every night. Yeah. And then, so I had an energy, intuitive lady muscle test for me after the diverticulitis thing. Yeah. And what I love to have, I got off of Starbucks and was drinking organic coffee with grass-fed cream, but she's like, no, you can't have dairy. I can't have cheese.
Yeah, I don't like any of it. I don't like the endless stimulant. I don't like the idea of you getting buckets of coffee to begin with, but all the dairy at this point.
Yeah, I was dairy, sugar, and coffee. So I'm off the coffee. I just drink some beautiful organic, a little bit of this wonderful tea that she has, organic teas and stuff like that. And I have hemp milk in it. I don't have that. I was like, what? When she was telling me, I'm like, well, should just kill myself. Yeah. How am I going to, no wheat, no dairy. Yeah. I do have cheese though. That's okay. She said she tested me first.
The harder fermented cheeses are probably better than the soft gooey.
And I
So
take a ton of natural supplements from a naturopath who's amazing. He's not just any naturopath. He's a food scientist. He's amazing, and he has really helped me.
I might ask for, if you could maybe just refer him, like send me his details, because I'm still trying to figure out my digestive system at times.
Oh yes, yeah,
So,
and he's published even in some one site, one, you know, the doctors let him publish one in a regular thing, and he's published. I will send you his information. Yeah.
So let me, I'm gonna give you another reframe here, just to continue to reinforce because I always believe that if we understand what's happening, then it's easier for us to stay disciplined, especially when it involves sacrifice. So just like the conversation that we had around drugs and alcohol that will lower the vibrational state, right? The whole intention here is to keep raising your vibrational energy, which will keep elevating your being, which will keep moving you to a healthier, more connected space, which will keep bringing more light and love into your world. And it'll keep bringing you to a place where you want to be. When you're aligned more intently with where you're intended to be, you're going to end up seeing that things that were such a struggle for so many years will end up falling into place. All right. And so from a foundational, fundamental standpoint, we have the body, we have the mind, we have the spirit. They all have different importance in this incarnation. We can't neglect one and expect the other two to just make up for it. And so to take care of the body, you know, like, I love that you've gotten your weight certainly back into order. I love that you've gotten all this advice. You really want to fill your body up with the greatest, highest vibrational nutrition. And it runs on two levels. One is getting all the processed, shitty American foods, like that classic.
I don't eat that crap.
All of it out.
Well, I did have some M&Ms yesterday. Okay, but that's rare now.
So, and there's nothing wrong with the cheating, right? So this is the balance. It's okay to cheat and to indulge. I don't want there to be any stress around it. I don't want you to feel like you're being deprived, right? So the whole idea is eat as much as you want of the healthiest foods possible. And I'm not religious, but I call it God's diet, which in the spiritual context is eat the foods closest to how God put on the planet in the abundance that satiates.
That's my policy. Yeah. Organic, grass-fed. I don't eat beef. I eat a little bit because my body seems to want some animal protein.
Fine.
A little bit of organic turkey and chicken. Yeah. I'm really good about it. And I don't have fat-free when I do have something, or, you know,
don't get it all modified. Don't let man, if it's cream that you're going to put in your milk, let it be as close to the natural source as possible. Obviously, without any fears of salmonella, whatever floats around it's around. You know that, right?
Yes.
So and I see that a million times over. Just, you know, 60 or 70% of Americans deal with obesity and are overweight. It's the same percentage that when surveyed will tell you that they eat healthily. But those are the, you know, they think that, you know, like the American nutritional guidelines in the school system, that somehow a French fry is considered a vegetable, or pizza has a vegetable.
No.
It's just, they're so out of their mind.
It's awful, isn't it?
Yeah. So if you're going to have a potato, then boil, or of course bake your potatoes. If you want to dash a little bit of olive oil, then so be it. But the idea of frying a potato, French fries, forget about it, potato chips, like all that stuff that takes the original vegetable and distorts it so far from its original, like it's off. It's just off.
And then it turns it into something completely different than the original.
And the body doesn't know how to assimilate it. And once again, so I have seen people, once they get the body in order, right? The body's the easy win, so to speak, because you can intuitively choose how to nourish the body. The mind takes longer, right? It's a lot of, you know, like you have to see the relationship between the two. But until the mind and the body are in order, it's very hard to channel spirit, to really connect with the divine and to understand your deeper intention.
Right.
And so we start with the baseline, right? We always get that. I'm the practical astrologer. I always try to get that in order as I work with people. And then we elevate to the next level, and then you elevate to the next level, right? The Taurus, by its nature, has an indulgent quality, as you've been describing. The Taurus loves big affairs generally. The Taurus is very comfortable in long, indulgent environments and meals. the Taurus, like anything else, can be wonderfully, wonderfully healthy. And some of the best examples in this space are actually set by Taurians, because the Taurus can live a long time in that really chilled out, healthy space. They can just linger over meals for hours and feel as if it's indulgent without being food indulgent. Like it's indulgent in the social aspect, it's indulgent in the healthiness of it all, doesn't have to get carried away. Right? And so insofar as the Taurus wants to be in that space, you also want to make sure that the people that you're around are are on the same path when you're enjoying your food.
Yeah, my husband's right there with me, and he's a really good cook. He does most of the cooking. I'm very lucky. He's a Taurus also.
See, you're all Earth. You're really only gonna. I mean, that's the low hanging fruit from a relationship standpoint. It's gonna be other Earth signs.
Yeah.
You have your subconscious sitting in Aquarius, which means that you actually know what you need to do. Like you have the wisdom. It's just then it channels up into the conscious mind. You have to act on it. But like in the astrological sense, there's 3 levels. There's just like in Freudian psychotherapy, the id, ego, and superego. It's a play on the sun, the moon, and the rising in the astrological context.
Gosh, so, I don't know hardly anything about that stuff. Like I said, I would hear people on YouTube, and then I'd be like, it just, nah.
I know, but the YouTube.
The first person I wanted to do a chart for me, just really.
I appreciate that. But this is because I'll give you practical tools that you'll be able to take away, and I'm reworking the thought patterns that are maybe behind some of the long-term ingrained ideals that have been motivating you. It's just because it's that convalescence of the practical with the spiritual to give something that's tangible, like something you can actually do something with. And that's kind of, I'm a Capricorn, so I'm an earth sign as well. So it would be automatic. The way my mind wants to structure it would connect healthily with the way your mind wants it structured. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So when I saw you list off your family, I knew that your best shot at a healthy relationship was with your little sister, your youngest sister.
Yeah.
Just by virtue of her also being a Taurus, and then and then the various conflicts that would have erupted. I can only imagine the energy. I don't have the charts of everybody else, but that's just where my mind was going. At the same time, if you're married to a Taurus and both of you can enjoy food together, and you can actually it sounds like you probably are, but if your energy around it is focused, it's not distracted, right? It's not kind of pulled in, like kind of the all-American approach now. It's not just US, and it's the world, but we have our iPhones, we have the TV on, and all these distractions. To really be fully present with the food and to be in, it's like a degree of, like I don't do the blessings, but I know people who are just really grateful when the bounty is in front of them and they can just give it a nice positive energy. They've studied this now from a few different angles. It actually assimilates in the body much better if you're loving the food as you're grateful for what you have.
Yeah, we put a prayer over it before we eat it, and I even feel when I'm not real tired and stuff, a ton of energy coming out of my hands when I do it.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about that. You're being okay, because we're saving the best for last, because you have a big transit coming up, but you know that this is all gearing you for your third act. Everything that's happening is preparing you for what's next.
What's it going to be? I want someone to just tell me and go, that's it. There you go. I don't have to work or think or anything. And
you're gonna find out.
I'm hoping it's in I want it to be a medium, but it's hard. I have a lot of fear that holds me back from stuff. And also I feel like there's some healing. I might be some type of healer. That's why I took the Reiki.
Yeah, I have a feeling that you're going to be able to channel a lot of the pain that you've experienced and a lot of the frustration, but to move you into a state of greater service for others, but in a similar capacity that you and I are kind of interacting with, really practical underpinnings. Like it's really to help people.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know what I mean? So So, so you have Saturn. Saturn is the planet. It's a planet of integrity. It also deals with structure, discipline, intent. It's going to measure the way you spend your time. It's going to make sure at the end of the day that you're in alignment with what it is that you've come here to do.
Is that the one you were talking about, that if I'm not, then it's going to be rough going or something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So Saturn, in our lifetime, we experience the Saturn transit twice. So we experience it in our late 20s, which is saying goodbye to our youth and effectively putting us into an adulthood. If we're out of alignment, the years that follow will be varying degrees of just challenging.
Yeah.
And it will manifest in a million different ways, like my health struggles, can have bad relationships. It's effectively Saturn in your late 20s is doing everything it can to say, hey, this isn't your path, this isn't your path, be respectful of your time, recognize why you're here. But then the egotic mind, the everyday kind of temptations call us into different directions, plus all the pain and suffering that hasn't been resolved creates all these defense mechanisms, and that keeps us distracted. It blinds us. But Saturn does what it can to say, hey, heads up, this is serious, you're here for a reason. If we don't listen to it, we get carried down into struggle. We get carried into the depths. Then it lets us linger there. And then we have basically 28, 29 years
Oh.
by which Saturn will give us different moments. Every 7 years, it reminds us, and then there are different points it intensifies, but then it comes all the way back around and it makes a second, what they call the second Saturn return. And on the second Saturn return, it gives you another opportunity to say, okay, I've learned a ton. It hasn't been easy. Am I in alignment with why I believe I came here? Right.
Yeah.
And so this is starting to open up your mind to what it is that what does it mean to be April? Like, what does it mean to be in this life? What is it that you came here to do? And
Right.
that's on a personal level first, like what are the lessons that I needed to learn? And then because fundamentally, before you can move into the spiritual space to help others, you call from your own experiences, because the teacher can only teach from what they've learned firsthand.
Right.
And so now Saturn, I don't have the exact date, but let's just call it a 2020 event. You get a little bit more runway. You have, like, you're building out, let's use that same metaphor. You're building out your runway a little bit longer now. And I can follow up with an email just to give you specifics, but at some point, probably mid next year, I think I actually did look at it, just didn't write it down. At some point mid next year, the Saturn return is going to reach the event, which is your natal placement, and it's going to start to look at the life that you're now living. And if you're in alignment with why you came here, it's going to help you get structured and grounded so that you can have the confidence to properly move forward.
Yay.
And if you're, and I think you're getting there. I don't even have to say what happens if you're not there. So let's just assume that you're getting there. I get that sense that you're really beautifully now moving towards that alignment.
I feel like I am. I'm working really hard
on it. I can tell you, my intuition on these things tends to be incredibly good. Like, you really are.
Okay.
You really are.
Then and then the other thing, like, God, we're almost out of time too. Financial has always been a struggle, and it's really scary kind of right now. But I'm doing my best not to be in fear, and some.
So the financial, it runs on a few levels. When I do readings which are just financially oriented, and because I have a finance background anyway, so then I can just really get into the minutia of it. But the financial, so first you have to look at the blocking and tackling, which is the practical, right? Which is what do I spend on? What's important to me? Do I have my financial sensibilities in place, right? Because some people don't realize they have subscriptions to things that they don't use, or they're living in a home that they have an emotional attachment to, but that's got 4 extra bedrooms and they haven't walked into them in 20 years. Like, you see all these interesting financial decisions that you have to take ownership of, but that leads to the next level of the conversation, which is, what is our relationship with money?
That hasn't been very good my whole life, pretty much.
And so then you have to start to, you dissect it from both a psychology standpoint, like why is it the
Yeah.
way it is? And then you overlay the energetic. There's nothing in your chart saying destructive financial tendencies in isolation with money.
Okay, that's good.
Right. So whatever's manifesting in your financial space, it's more oriented around dysfunction, trauma, or some type of lingering energy that kicked you off onto the wrong path that keeps rearing its ugly head.
Yeah. Well, my parents had a lot of money for a long time. Um, I mean, my dad built up to being like not a multi, but a self-made millionaire with his business.
Okay.
And we were really, my mom just indulged us and spoiled the hell out of us.
Yeah, because Libras in general are consumers.
Yeah, and yes.
They don't really go deep into their emotions, but they're happy to buy stuff.
Oh yeah. And then basically I just like left the nest going, okay, who's going to take care of me? Yeah. Not really thinking that and my mom kind of encouraged that. She was like, oh, well, you girls are pretty. All you have to do is find a nice husband. And, with that old school mentality. Yeah. But, I don't know what happened to me. Two of my sisters are really good with being financially responsible. And then me, my brother, and my other sister have never been.
So, well, the Taurus can spend, but they can't. The Taurus spends their own. Taurus spends on their own terms. Nobody can really shift or convince the Taurus to spend for things that they don't want. So there's something compelling you to spend your money. I'm trying to think. You'd have to. We'd have to do this justice. We'd have to get a sense. It would be just a practical conversation to start, and then we'd overlay the emotional and the energetic, like I was saying. But we would figure out right from the get-go how and I know California is ridiculous, both from an expense standpoint, but also the tax structure is not easy, right? It's like what you make, it just seems that half of it's gone before you even get it,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the conversation, is that first you just figure out, are we sensible with our expenses? What's our income opportunity? And then you take it one step further and say, is there some dysfunction or something that has us doing things with our money that's just not sensible? Like, people get into all sorts of blinding patterns around behavior. And I see it on both sides. I consult with people who are multimillionaires and they're pinching pennies and they go shopping on certain days of the week because they can save 50 cents in coupons. And I'm like, it's absolute madness, like they'll wait in line twice as long to save because there's so much fear around on that side of the equation. And then again, to the other side of the equation, people that go through these depressed periods and they spend millions of dollars on nonsense just because they have the money and they think it's going to satiate their emptiness. And so money, and it's my favorite misquoted Bible quote. Not that I get the Bible. I don't know the Bible well, but I know this quote, money is the root of all evil. And it's actually the greatest misquote, because the true quote is, the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And
it's
really
just energy, right?
It's a measurement of your energetic space.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you live in fear and anxiety in general, it shows up most acutely in your relationship with money.
Yeah.
I know. And so when you're, but when you're loving and expansive and you can elevate to that space, money, it's still part of the consciousness, but it doesn't become an added source of anxiety. Your health and wellness, especially, considering what you've been through and where you guys are in life, it obviously would have financial ramifications, to stay healthy, to eat the foods that we're talking about. That whole lifestyle, it's not cheap. Like
that's what we spend most of I feel like it seems like most of our money on. Yeah.
I know. And so that's part of it. So then people start to go to the farmer's market and they start to look into different shopping options, like.
Yeah. And our animals, we have a lot of rescue animals.
Yeah. I heard them all earlier.
5 little dogs and 1 cat and a feral cat that we feed. I'm like, it was very irresponsible, but we had a lot more money then. They were all younger, but we both have done a lot of impulsive, irresponsible things. But
And
I'm not abandoning them, you
no, and
know.
that's part of your journey, of course, is to recognize when you're about to be impulsive and when you're about to be irresponsible. Like,
Yeah,
remember no more, this is a totally quote, no more can we control the thoughts in our mind than we can the blood in our veins, right? What we have control over is what we do with those thoughts and how we treat them.
right,
So you can have an impulsive thought or you can have an irresponsible thought. It doesn't mean that you have to act irresponsibly or act impulsively.
right.
It
Yeah,
just means that you start to reckon. It's no different than the guy who had a tough day who's been fighting his alcohol addiction. He's like, should I go into the bar or should I not go in the bar? He can be overwhelmed with impulsivity. I know addiction clouds judgment and overwhelms sensibility. But once you get past that and you start to recognize how the mind is working, it's the ego that is tempting you all the time.
yeah. I know. I wish it would get in the back and shut up.
Well, but once you start to see it for what it is, then it starts to leave you alone.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right.
Oh, thank you so much. I just love you. You're great. And I really, really enjoyed this. So I'm looking
See,
forward.
I told you there's nothing to be nervous about. I knew we were gonna. I didn't think it was gonna be quite as heavy. I knew you had challenges. I didn't know how bad they were, how severe, how difficult. But look at where you are. Look at the beautiful smile. Look at how far you've come. I'm telling you, you are setting up brilliantly for your third act. You
That's
really
good to
are.
know. I need to hear those things. It's helpful. Yeah.
You really are. You really are. I would tell you if it wasn't the case, I'd be pulling at you like crazy. In this case, I can encourage you to continue on the path that you're on.
Okay, good. Yay.
All right,
Okay.
my dear. Have a lovely, lovely afternoon.
You too. Or evening, whatever it is over there.
Dinner time.
Okay.
Ciao.
Bye.